Welcome into a brand new episode of the Sports Hub Patriots podcast. Alex, Barth, Matt Dolloff with you coming to you Friday morning after the Patriots Week 2 preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll kind of recap that game, and hopefully, Dolloff, this time everything stays current and up to date. Because last time we did a podcast, we talked a good amount about Matthew Judon. Like 4 hours later, no, it was less than that. It was while I was driving home. He gets traded to the Atlanta Falcons. I wrote a pretty extensive reaction piece on 98.5thesportshub.com. But before we get to the game, just since we haven't touched on it, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Judon situation. Again, I'll redirect people to my piece that I wrote on 98.5thesportshub.com.
Yeah, look, it's not shocking that he got traded because that's just how it goes in the NFL sometimes. If the other team is not budging on the contract, then they start shopping you around in a trade. And the shocking part is that they got a third-round pick back. I thought this thing had come to a head to the point that the Patriots were only going to be able to get sort of, a late-round draft pick for Judon just to move on from him. And like, this is a 32-year-old coming off a major injury. So, I mean, I was a little surprised that they were able to get a third-round pick out of that. I know that you've been on this for months or weeks anyway, saying that they should have done this months ago.
Yeah.
And so that they finally did it. And I think we should just go back and edit that podcast whenever we say Patriots, just insert us saying Atlanta Falcons, like just change that and then it'll be up to date.
Oh, look, in that case, Atlanta Falcons quarterback Drake Maye looked pretty good last night.
Hey, don't even joke like that.
As we get into the game from last night again. Well, let's start here actually. So we don't usually talk about the score of preseason games. I don't even remember, what was it, 14-13, I think.
14-13.
Obviously, and the Patriots lost. Obviously, the result not nearly important in these games compared to the individual product players put on the field as you try to figure out who's going to make the roster. But Jerod Mayo seemed pretty broken up after it. Talked about it being his first loss as a coach. They didn't do the little things well enough. They didn't tackle well enough in the second half. Put the onus on himself to be better about that. We came away from last week kind of wondering, does he really care about these preseason games? And last night, he certainly seemed like a guy that cared. It was an interesting tone shift and maybe seeing in real time the development of a young coach.
Yeah, look, as Bill Belichick's successor, like, one of the big questions for Jerod Mayo is just like how much of Bill sort of rubbed off on him. And obviously the personality is different. The way he's approached training camp has been, there's been little things that have been different than what Bill Belichick does. But this is an area where you hope that Bill Belichick has sort of rubbed off on Jerod Mayo, is that he hates losing. And it felt like he really hated the fact that the Patriots lost that game. And like he went over, I forget if he did. Well, Drake Maye went over the penalties and the mistakes and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of the details I don't remember how many of the details Jerod Mayo went over after that game, but he definitely looked at the bad parts of that game and just thinks about what the team can do to be better. And like, he was hoping that they could close that game out, and obviously they didn't. But he said the last week after the game against the Panthers, like, the game didn't count, but it matters. And so I was wondering how much he really cared about these games as far as just evaluating the team and getting ready for the season and all that. This whole week with the Eagles and the joint practice and the game, he treated it, I think, like a big measuring stick for the team. And obviously, it's, at least for the offense, the joint practice didn't go well at all. I thought it was better in the game last night, at least for Drake Maye and the number twos on the offense. It wasn't so great for the starters on the offense and Jacoby Brissett. But I personally like that Jerod Mayo is all broken up about losing that game. I don't care that it's a meaningless game. I look at Jerod Mayo and say, like, how much do you really care about getting better and winning games and all that? And so I think that's a little glimpse as to, if this team loses a lot of games, that Jerod Mayo is not going to be happy about it. And so I don't think it's going to be, I think the comparisons to Pete Carroll were a little premature. Let's put it that way.
Well put. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. Let's start with Jacoby Brissett first, because I think it's a quicker conversation, because most of this podcast is going to be dedicated to Drake Maye. Jacoby Brissett had a rough night last night. After having a rough performance in the joint practice on Tuesday, after having a rough performance in the previous practice on Monday, we'll talk about this quarterback competition kind of still being open. But part of that, if it is really open to me, is not just Drake Maye playing better. Jacoby Brissett has come back to the pack. And that great start he had at the beginning of camp, You're seeing that fade. The accuracy has not been as good. He's been spraying the ball more. Really bad decision. Not even questionable. I'll just say it. Bad decision on the interception. I think Jerod Mayo called it a terrible play. I know it's third down, but you got to either tuck that and run or just throw it out of the back of the end zone. 3rd and 3 from the 12, especially in a preseason game. You should be able to convince Jerod Mayo to let you go there on 4th. It's been concerning. It's been concerning. And I think I was as high as anybody on Jacoby Brissett through the first 2 weeks of camp. I was very excited by what I saw. Not feeling that right now. I'm not.
Yeah, no, he undid a lot of good on that drive where he threw the interception because they were driving down the field. And if they got in the end zone on that drive, the whole narrative of the game and this season and the quarterback competition might have been different. But that's how it goes in football. One play, one bad decision, one split second too late on the throw, and like you change the whole story. And that's what happened with Jacoby Brissett is that. And we were talking about this with Chris Gasper, friend of the program, last night after the game, that like he's never been the most accurate passer. I think that's been his biggest problem throughout camp when you look at the totality of it, is that he's just, even when he has time to throw and he's throwing it on time, it's not always on the mark accuracy-wise. And so it's hard to make plays when you can't throw the ball accurately as a quarterback. It's one of the 2 or 3 most important things in the position. And so obviously the accuracy has been bad. The throw is off the mark to Austin Hooper in the end zone, but at the same time, he was just late with the decision. He had Antonio Gibson sort of coming down a seam down the middle, and if you were able to anticipate Antonio Gibson coming into the little opening down the middle of the field, he might have been able to hit him for a touchdown. Tyquan Thornton got open after the cornerback sort of stumbled in coverage as he was going for the out route or to the right. But Jacoby Brissett sort of would have had to make an anticipatory throw there to the right. I think he just needed to anticipate better. And even if he did anticipate, he's not executing fast enough. And that is like, I think we're going to transition to Drake Maye soon, but like, I think that's where Drake Maye was sort of striking last night, is that he played a little faster than Jacoby Brissett. And like, that wasn't the case throughout camp. Like at the beginning of camp, Jacoby Brissett was making plays. And like, there was a time where, even when Drake Maye was sort of starting to come on and you were seeing signs of improvement, Jacoby Brissett was still playing relatively well. And we were saying, like, you know, if Jacoby Brissett weren't playing well, I'd be wondering what we're doing here. Why isn't Drake Maye getting more of a shot in the competition? But now, yeah, Jacoby Brissett has gone backwards in the last couple of weeks. And at the same time, Drake Maye has sort of, come on strong in the last couple of weeks. And so it's gotten real close between those two as far as how they're performing. The question is it going to change as far as practice reps going forward? And like, is this going to become a real competition? Not just saying it's a competition. Is it a competition? Like, I think we're getting much, much closer to that, based on both how Drake Maye has been playing and how Jacoby Brissett has sort of taken a step back.
So you had to like what Drake Maye did last night. And that's the other part of this. And the numbers aren't spectacular. Was, I think, 6 of 11, 47 yards. Obviously ran for, had a couple of scrambles and had the designed option run for a touchdown. He just looked, I said this to you after the game. I said this to Mike Reese after the game. He just looked like loose. And I mean that in a good way. Like let's call it what it is. This is his first real extended NFL action. Last week, it was 7 snaps with the kid gloves on. He really only threw down the field once. This was the first time he actually got to go out there and operate his game in an NFL game. And he looked loose. He looked calm. He looked confident. It wasn't perfect. There's the fumbled snap, which I think it's always on both, but I looked at Maye as maybe being the main issue there. He had a couple passes sail on him. One that Kayshon Boutte bailed him out with an excellent one-handed catch. Very typical LSU one-handed catch. He had another one I think it was Javon Baker right over the middle that he threw a little bit behind him, and it could have been picked. That was a little risky the way that ball sailed on him, but for the most part, the ball was on point. It came out on time. He was able to use his legs to extend plays and create. He had 2 good downfield throws, and neither one were caught. We'll get to those in a little bit, but for a guy, again, in what was essentially his first NFL action, you look at that and you say, yeah, okay. That's why he was a 3rd overall pick. That's why people are so excited about him. You kind of see what's there that the team hopes to tap into over the next, hopefully, decade plus.
Yeah, the talent is there. I mean, I think that's the obvious one, is that this is the most talented, most purely athletic, talented quarterback that they've had in a long time. And like that is making a big difference. And this is the current NFL. It's like it's mostly based on athleticism, and like it's a bigger deal than it used to be. It's not just about playing within a system, within structure. And look, Drake Maye had to do a little of that. He had to learn a little bit how to play within structure and play under center and huddle up and operational things, which, Drake Maye and Jerod Mayo have both used that word operational in the last 12 hours call, talking about that game and how there's still room for improvement there. And I think that could be what ultimately holds Drake Maye back over the next few weeks and sort of the start of the season, is that you really got to make sure that's all crisp. You can't have a fumbled snap like that in a regular season game. Like you got to have a nice, crisp, clean operation in terms of going in and out of the huddle and calling plays at the line and just executing the basic stuff like the snap. Post snap, Drake Maye has been better than Jacoby Brissett in the last couple of weeks. He just has, and I think that sort of came to fruition in the game. And yeah, his passer rating and his stats would have looked a lot better if Javon Baker didn't drop a couple deep balls. And there was the other one that you mentioned that was sort of thrown behind him a little off the mark, but it was off his hands. So, I mean, it was reasonably catchable. Like, you could argue that Javon Baker had 3 drops in that game, and like both of their numbers would have looked a lot better if they were able to connect. And I wouldn't put any of that on Drake Maye. The one deep ball down the sideline to Baker. Yes, Baker was out of bounds, and he couldn't complete the catch there. But honestly, the decision, like I looked at the all 22 from, I think it was Dan Orlovsky tweeted this morning that he had someone on a deep over down the field. I forget who it was. It might have been tight end Mitchell Wilcox down the field, open, deep, about 20 yards down the field on a deep over. And so he could have hit him. He was pretty much open on that play, and Javon Baker was pretty well covered and basically pushed out of bounds. It would have been a penalty basically if he caught the ball. So I wonder about the decision on that one. But yeah, like there was the one catch that Javon Baker did make. It was to convert a third down on the dig route about 12 yards down the field. Like that was a nice play. And the deep ball down the field that Javon Baker should have caught, but it came out of his hands. He shifted a little bit in the pocket. Footwork looked good there. Kept his eyes downfield and delivered a strike. It was a 55-yard pass, a strike down the field. And so Jacoby Brissett can't do a lot of those things. Like, he's just not capable of playing that high of a level from a physical standpoint. And if Jacoby Brissett can't make decisions as well, and he can't make decisions as quickly as you want him to, then Drake Maye is really coming up close to him. And look, I know that the offensive line concerns are real, but you have a good quarterback making plays and playing fast, you sort of start to worry a little bit less about Chuks Okorafor. And Vederian Lowe might be sort of an outlier on that. Like you worry about him no matter who's playing quarterback, or the quarterback has to worry no matter what, because Drake Maye got absolutely leveled by the Eagles' first round pick, whose name escapes me late in that game. And that was that was a third down play, and he got lit up because Vederian Lowe gave up inside leverage on him, even though he had help from the running back on the block there. And that was when we were all saying, like, okay, I think we've seen enough of Drake Maye. Get him off the field, put him on ice. So, yeah, I guess you still got to worry about the left tackle situation as far as, like, putting Drake Maye in there. But Drake Maye has made it very interesting the way he's played as far as the quarterback competition is concerned.
So, now look, it was against the Eagles didn't play their starting defense last night. You take that into account. I think you talk about making plays in structure, the third down throw to Javon Baker, he steps up in the pocket and little maneuver, gives himself the space, hits him over the middle. Like
that's an NFL quarterback play there.
And that's the kind of play that he wasn't necessarily making at North Carolina. That's a development. You're seeing growth there. You did have the fumbled snap, some other things. I still don't think he's ready week 1. I don't. I still think, you got to look at the totality of it and how much time they give in Jacoby Brissett. He still needs a little bit.
And you were saying the schedule too last night.
Right. We talked about it last night. All right. So he's not ready week 1. You're not going to one and done Jacoby Brissett. They're not going to do that. Week 3 is a short week. You probably don't want to get him going on a short week. And then week 4 is cross country against the best defense in football. It's probably the hardest game for whoever the quarterback is on the schedule. Right. I'd rather not. But I'll say this now. After that, it becomes a conversation. I think Jacoby Brissett's your quarterback for the first month. After that, it becomes a conversation, and he's played his way towards that. Still improvement to make, but he's definitely helped his case. He did so last night, and we'll see now moving forward. I wonder how much he'll play in that third preseason game. Jerod Mayo made it sound like they're going to play the starters quite a bit. I do worry a little bit about running into some fool's gold here because, again, the Eagles didn't play their starters last night. I'd imagine Washington's not going to play anybody next week. Teams generally don't play their starters in the third preseason game. That's why that was so impressive. So let's not get too over the top about this group back-to-back weeks playing a bunch of guys that will either be on the bottom of the depth chart or not on a roster. But it does sound like there's going to be another opportunity. Speaking of that, the offensive line, for the most part, looked better last night. Now, again, this wasn't the Eagles' starting defense. For the most part, though, I thought the group held up. I thought, let's call them the four to the right, were solid. Even the second unit looked pretty good. I thought Caden Wallace had a solid yet unspectacular game. It was still a struggle for Vidarian Lowe. He had their lone penalty of the game, and credit to them, the operation was much cleaner. Didn't have a ton of issues with substitutions. There's one issue on getting the punt team on in the fourth quarter, and they had the one false start from Vidarian Lowe, but that was it for penalties, so good for them on that. But he had their lone penalty. He got beat a couple of times. He got blown by a couple of times. They are going to need to figure something out at left tackle because I think it's clear at this point he can't be the best option. And Jerod Mayo was talked about, and Elliot Wolf talked about it last night. He was on the WBZ broadcast very briefly, that they're going to find their best five, and they're going to find the five that give them the best chance to win. And that doesn't mean the best five are going to be great. That doesn't mean they're going to keep moving things around until they find a group that's great, because that group may not exist. But I just don't see how the best five includes Vidarian Lowe at this point.
Yeah, I haven't understood it. And I feel like it's almost like they got in too deep with Vidarian Lowe over the last couple of weeks, where they started to feel like, well, we can't change it now. You know what I mean?
Well, now they've burned all this time.
They're pot committed, as you would say in poker terms. Like, I've already put too many chips into the table. Now we have to go all in.
Take committed, as Felger would say.
Take committed. You're take cornered, whatever they would say on Felger Mez. Yeah, no, you're too committed to the Vidarian Lowe experience. And I don't know, maybe that sort of changed after last night, because Vidarian Lowe played well into the third quarter. And then after him, it was Caden Wallace at left tackle. So Caden Wallace, to me, is like clearly the backup left tackle.
Yeah.
Maybe Caden Wallace is starting to show them enough that he can at least be in the conversation to be the starting left tackle, which he was for a few days a couple weeks ago before they moved to Vidarian Lowe. And I just don't think that Vidarian Lowe has shown enough. Like, Jerod Mayo may have said recently when he was asked about Vidarian Lowe has shown signs of improvement, taking steps forward. Like, I don't know about that. Like, I feel like it's been the same thing. It's just been a struggle for him, and he's just not a starting left tackle in the NFL. He just isn't. And like, I just don't think the offensive problems for the Patriots are across the board. I feel like you could almost boil it all the way down to just the left tackle spot, and just how much harder it is to have a functional NFL offense when you don't have a functional left tackle. And I think Caden Wallace has a chance to be that, and maybe he just needed time. Maybe still needs time to develop, because you've been hot on this, how hard it is to move from right to left. And Caden Wallace played a little bit of right tackle last night too. He played right tackle with Joe Milton. So he's shown that he's capable of playing both spots. Maybe he's not going to be a great left tackle or anything like that. But he's got to be better than Vidarian Lowe. And so I wonder if everything will sort of start to come together for the offense as a unit once they figure out that left tackle spot. I'm curious to see how it looks with Caden Wallace in there. I hope they give him a shot, because like you said, their best five, I don't see how Caden Wallace can't be part of their best five going forward. And another interesting one to think about is Layden Robinson, the other rookie lineman that came into the game last night. I think he's had a good summer, and I think they have something there with him. And just maybe there's just a bit of a logjam with Sidney So starting at left guard, and for now they have Michael Wenu still playing right guard. I think putting Michael Wenu at right tackle and maybe moving Layden Robinson up to the right guard spot is a conversation to have. And again, like, it's the same thing as the quarterback spot. Maybe week one is a little too soon for that, but I think that's a conversation worth having, and as far as finding out the best five. But this might be another thing, just like the quarterbacks, where they need that first month. Excuse me. They need that first month to sort of figure things out and get that whole thing figured out. And hopefully they could come out of it with 1 or 2 wins. That might be a prayer at this point, but I think they still need time to figure out that offensive line. But I think the way the rookies have played, there's promise there that they could figure it out.
But I think you just hit on something key. They're both rookies. And I think we see both moves you just described at some point this year. Caden Wallace at left tackle, Lane Robinson in at right guard with Michael Onwenu kicking outside. I do sort of understand, at least both at the same time. I think they got to get Vidarian Lowe out of the lineup. But I understand not wanting to go into week 1 with 2 rookies on the offensive line and maybe not wanting to make both of those moves at the same time. So it's another one where we're probably going to have to wait till into the season. But I wouldn't
2025.
Well, into this season, hopefully.
Hey, they draft a left tackle. They draft a left tackle, first round, second round next year, and Layden Robinson plays right guard. Layden Robinson plays guard. Michael Onwenu plays guard. You move Caden Wallace to right tackle. Now we're cooking.
You're just benching City So.
I don't know if he's shown enough that he has the job locked up.
Fair enough. No, I mean, I'd like
it's hold over.
The problem is all their promising talent is really on the interior.
Yeah.
It's not a tackle. So they have multiple guys because remember, Cole Strange is going to come back at some point. Whether or not they'll put him in the lineup is a conversation to have then. There may not be a job waiting for him when he gets back. But Layden Robinson, Mike Onwenu, if they're going to play him at guard, City So, Cole Strange, Nick Leverett's been one of their better linemen in camp. I know he had the fumble last night, but he's been solid. He's a guard center hybrid. It's all
he's on the team.
So
he's on the team. He's the backup center.
But they're going to need it. It's all at guard. They're going to need to, like you said, add tackles at some point. But we'll talk about Will Campbell. We'll probably do our little college football preview that I make you do. I hold you hostage for. We'll probably be doing that soon. So we'll talk more about Will Campbell when we get to that point. I have
sounds good.
Interesting setup for how we might do that one. But we'll talk about that off the air. Wide receivers. I want to specifically highlight the rookies because I thought they were the 2 notable players last night. I think you could argue that they were in very limited run. They were the best and worst receivers on the team last night, the 2 rookies. Jalen Polk only caught 2 passes, but I think you saw it really good, really encouraging game for him because he was doing a lot. So he catches that one on the flat, makes 2 guys miss for first down, showcases that skill set, also showcased some vertical ability. He didn't catch it. Jacoby Brissett overthrew him, but pulled away from the defender. If Jacoby Brissett puts that ball on him, it's a big play touchdown. So really liked what I saw from Jalen Polk last night. I thought it was an encouraging game for him. Meanwhile, Javon Baker, I've been saying this about Javon Baker all camp. He's not going to be a volume player. He's never going to be a guy that's like a 7-8 catch a game guy. He's going to be like a 3 catch, 80-yard sort of player that wins on spectacular catches and big plays. Drops are going to be a problem for him. They have been. You just hope they don't come at the big moments. And what you saw last night was for a guy that's going to win on spectacular catches and down the field, he has to catch that pass from Drake Maye. For a guy that's going to win, again, going down the field, hunting big plays, you can't get forced out of bounds on your route, which he did by Keely Ringo on that ball. Drake Maye threw to him deep down the left sideline going towards the end zone.
Yep.
So what you saw Javon Baker, he's not a consistent player. He's a flash player. I've used Gabe Davis as a comparison, where Gabe Davis has 4 games a year where he looks like a top 10 receiver in the league, and then you don't see him the rest of the year. I think that's kind of who Javon Baker is. What you saw last night is he had an opportunity to have that big game, and he didn't. And he needs to be able to make more of those opportunities to be an impact player.
Yeah, look, I was talking about Baker before. He's a complimentary big play guy. And look, even if he caught all 4 of those targets, 4 catches for 95 yards, he's going to be that kind of guy where you take a shot down the field. And look, he has to catch that deep ball down the middle from Maye. It was in both of his hands. It was in both of his hands. He didn't have to extend too much. You got to complete the process there. I think he knew it based on how he reacted. And just staying in bounds has been sort of an issue for him. That's sort of a thing where he has to adjust to the NFL. You got to get both feet in bounds, kid. There's been a lot of that in the red zone where he only gets 1 foot in. And I think that's been sort of a thing for him. And so, he just needs to clean up his details a little bit, and he needs to get more consistent catching the ball, but maybe he never does. But if he can make that occasional big play, he can help them win some games. And like you said, Gabe Davis has helped the Bills win some games. He's just not that he's not that consistent big play guy, or else he'd be a superstar.
Right.
And so if Javon Baker is just a complimentary guy, but he can make plays and occasionally help you win a game, that's that's a hit for a 4th round pick at receiver. We've seen receivers that never do anything here in New England. Like we are completely accustomed to drafted receivers doing nothing for the Patriots. So if Javon Baker can do something, that's better than nothing. And, yes, anything.
Forget something, anything.
Yeah, anything. And so like Javon Baker could give him a little something with just the occasional big play. And on Polk, I love the play where he caught the ball and made the couple guys miss. But I'm glad you brought up that deep ball from Jacoby Brissett. We've seen a lot of plays like that from Polk in camp where he's not getting a great amount of separation, but he gets just enough of a step behind the cornerback. And if you put the ball on the money, he's gonna catch it. Like he's sort of the opposite of Baker, where like he catches everything, and as long as it's on target, and so an on target throw there, that's a big catch, and maybe he can run away from the receiver after making the catch there, and it would have been a long touchdown, like you said. But I really like what I've seen from Polk in the summer, and like I think it's almost similar to the quarterbacks again, where he has been steady and all, if anything, gotten a little bit better as camp has gone on. And meanwhile, a guy like KJ Osborne, who flashed for a week or so, has sort of taken a step back, especially this week going up against the Eagles in that secondary. Jalen Reagor's been up and down. Keyshawn Boutte has flashed. He made the great one-handed catch last night, but he hasn't been consistent at all. Polk has been their most consistent receiver, and so I was glad to see him get an opportunity with Brissett, and I hope he starts getting more starting opportunities going forward. He might be their best receiver almost by default because they don't have that true number one star receiver, but he's going to be a steady guy that's going to catch a lot of balls thrown his way as long as it's accurate. And so maybe he's not a match for Jacoby Brissett because his accuracy is all over the place. But the Maye Polk connection looks like it could be something legit for him, which I love to see.
Real quick, anything else on the offense before we hop over to the defensive side?
Oh, put me on the spot there, Barth. Oh, Antonio Gibson, like we said earlier, got open for at least a moment on that red zone play. So I would love to see if he could be a factor as a pass catching running back. We know what Ramondre Stevenson can bring to the table. Gibson has been sort of up and down in practice as far as his production is concerned. He had a chance to really make something happen for the offense. And if not for Jacoby Brissett being a little too late on his decision-making there, like he might've had a touchdown. So I thought that was encouraging to see. I think they're going to need everything they can get out of every pass catcher this year. And so I like to see that. I like to see Gibson make more plays, but also the quarterback has to be on target too.
All right, on the defense, huge caveat on the defense last night because the Eagles didn't play their starting offensive line. They barely played their backup offensive line. But it was what starters versus backups should look like. They dominated. They were in the backfield constantly. 5 sacks, 6 more quarterback hits. It's a group they should beat up on, but they beat up on them. That's good. That's good. So I don't know that I'm going to sit here and tell you that Josh Uche is going to seamlessly step in for Matthew Judon based on last night. Uche did have a great game, but again, he's going to face much tougher competition. You saw them turn up the heat. The 2 guys on defense last night, there's 3 guys that stood out to me, 2 guys for good, 1 guy for bad, were Raekwon McMillan and Josh Bledsoe looked great. Raekwon McMillan was flying downhill against the run. He was delivering big hits. He's going to make this team. They're giving him opportunities. He's made the most of them. He's going to make this team. Joshua Bledsoe, the other guy, sneaky good when used as a blitzer. Not what you expect from a safety, but he didn't get a sack. He caused 2 pressures and made some plays on the back end. I think he played his way onto the roster last night. The guy who had a rough night for me was Marcellus Dial, the rookie corner. Just gave up too many catches. I still think he's on the team just because the overall body of work this summer has been more good than bad. But he's going to have to sweat it out now, I think, after last night, if that makes sense. Like, you're going to look for him to bounce back coming back here. And I would expect him to play a good amount against Washington.
Yeah, no, Dial is not a lock to make the team as a 6th round pick. And like, there is a bit of a competition there at a cornerback on the depth chart after Christian Gonzalez on the outside anyway. And I think Alex Austin has like come pretty close to locking up that second spot, so to speak. I don't know that anyone else has sort of made enough consistent plays on the outside as Austin has. And so I feel like Austin has that number 2 spot. After him, where do you go from there? You got Marco Wilson, and we got guys that play late in the game like Azizi Herm, Mikey Victor. Marcellus Dial has sort of moved toward that second group a little more than a guy that could possibly play a lot for this team. And like he gave up a lot of catches, and he got almost picked on in coverage in the second half last night. And yeah, no, I'd be concerned for his roster spot if I were him. Josh Bledsoe had a good game. Del Pettis, my guy, had at least a couple of hard hits there.
I mean, made
so
a great
they're looking
tackle
pretty good at safety.
Made a great tackle to keep a much bigger tight end out of the end zone on the 1 yard line. That was the high point for me from Del Pettis.
Yeah. I thought Pettis and Bledsoe were sort of in a competition for one roster spot, but I think there's probably room for both the way that the cornerback competition is sort of started to shake out there. They're still going to play a lot of nickel, it seems. So like they're probably going to be deep at safety again. And McMillan was a great one to me too. There was one great play. I forget who tweeted it, but like you see the replay from the overhead view where he sheds the blocking tight end and he makes the tackle in the backfield on the running back. And so I think they're going to be able to stop the run at least. Like, we'll see how the pass rush looks against starting NFL offensive lines with no Judon, no Barmore. Like there's legitimate reason to be concerned about their ability to get a pass rush going. But between McMillan, Bentley, Tavai, Anthony Jennings, and Devon Godshaw up front, like I think they're going to be good against the run, which I think is always a sneaky important thing in the National Football League. You always make it harder for a team when you force them into third and long situations. And so I think that's going to be a good aspect of the team. I don't think everything on the team is going to suck. I think the run defense is actually going to be good. Matty Brightside over here. But as far as the pass rush goes, Dietrich Wise, O'Shane Jimenez, Keon White had a sack last night. I think he's going to have a good year. Did I say Jeremiah Farms?
Maybe
say that.
Those
guys, like they're good, solid pass rushers, but are they going to be consistent? Is the question. And so it's hard to tell when they're going against second and third stringers. And it would have been nice to see them go up against the starting O-line of the Eagles, which is one of the best in the National Football League. But they have volume there in terms of pass rushers, but I'm just not sure how much they have in terms of impact talent that can make plays no matter who they're going up against. So I think that's something to watch, but it's been encouraging.
All right, wrap it up on special teams. 2 quick notes for me. One, Jalen Reagor is going to make this team not just because of his ability as a receiver. He had a good week enjoying practices as a returner, and he popped one a little bit last night, picked up like 10 extra yards with a subtle little move. The bigger one, I'm ready to declare a winner in the kicker competition. I know Jerod Mayo said it's still wide open. Maybe it technically is still open, but a lot has to happen at this point for Chad Ryland to catch Joey Sly. Sly hit 2 more long field goals last night. When they did the walkthrough before the game, as they always do, they only kicked 1 field goal. Sly got the rep. He looks like the starting kicker right now. I think with 1 week to go, the gap is too big. I think Joey Sly's their kicker in 2024.
Yeah, no, now he's just looking like the clearly better guy than Chad Ryland. And I know before I said I think I'm sticking with Chad Ryland, but that was really just because, he has tenure. He's been here. And I think we could still work on developing him, but like he just hasn't gotten better. Joey Sly has gotten better, and he looked like the better guy last night. And so, I think you're right there. I think they might have to make the move there. And Bryce Baringer hasn't had any competition. Like he had an up and down game. I think I cursed him because I said he's going to be an all-pro, and then he started.
He had like 3
spraying it all over the place.
Yeah.
But I feel good about the kicking operations overall. I think it was shaky with Ryland in there. Joey Sly might be able to sort of settle things down there a little bit and steady the ship, so to speak. And so that was another encouraging sign. And look, special teams it wasn't good the last couple of years. They had blocked punts. They weren't getting a lot of impact in the return game, especially with Marcus Jones injured. But Jalen Reagor's a guy, he had the return touchdown last year, and like he's been making an impact as a returner in the summer. And so, I think he's been inconsistent as a receiver, but there is speed there. There's still upside potentially. And just the ability as a returner. Like I think there's a spot for him on the roster for sure. And now you start to wonder about Tyquan Thornton. And I mean, like even KJ Osborne, like I know he's the veteran guy, and like he's just been locked in as a starter in terms of reps and just the starting the game last night. But like, I don't know. I just don't think there's a lot beyond the rookies that like these guys are locks to make the team or like make a big impact. But Reagor's versatility, I think will keep him on the team.
Yeah, I think he has a good shot. So that's a quick look back at the preseason week 2 game. For more, check out 985thesportshub.com. recaps from both Matt and myself. Patriots back in practice Saturday. We will have no more of those little recaps with Zoe because radio's not down there. So we're going to have to figure out what we'll do recap wise. But of course, if you check out 985thesportshub.com, it'll all be there. And if you subscribe either to the Sports Hub YouTube channel or the Sports Hub Patriots audio feed, wherever you get your podcasts, you'll get updates there. So until the next one, for Matt Dolloff, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. You usually say bye. I wait to cut it off.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
bye.